I just wanted to give you a little bit of insight of what it's like to live close to a quarry. And you've seen all the things that have been mentioned in the last two reports, and I also want to thank you for your time for listening to me. Basically, we bought our house in 1992. It was a nice house in a residential area. To give you an idea, our house sits right here, and we have quarries to the back of our property. We actually, when we bought the house, had a residential piece of property here that we thought would buffer where we lived from the quarry. When we bought the property, there was a small quarry here that was flooded, and it had been closed. There was trees growing up in it, and all the local residents used to go fishing and stuff there. Then there was what they called a berm, which is like a wall of rock, and it divided that quarry, which was filled with water and had been closed for a long while, from this quarry here, which was operating, at the time we bought the house, it was only operating in a milling capacity. Now, when we, at one point, the industry, I guess, decided they were going to open the other quarry, and it was purchased by somebody else. And we found out that usually they have to be permitted if the quarries are closed for a certain portion of time and they're not operating. In fact, this quarry right here was also closed, and as they mentioned really quickly, they have to go and apply for a permit from the town. Okay, there are certain parts in these permits, as they said, they're very vague on the pictures that they give them. Like here's one, it just has a really roughly hand-drawn sketch of where the quarry is going to be, the one that's being permitted for is going to look like. And then there's another little piece of it. But then there are some things in here that pertain to some of the problems we've been having. It says blasting and extraction of rock, although undisputedly carried on in the past, has been abandoned for such a long period of time that they no longer qualify for such treatment. And then it says to reinstitute such operations is an expansion of non-conforming use. So in our town, this is actually considered a non-conforming use. Okay, and as such, the activities must meet certain criteria. And then it talks about how it's set forth in a section 250. What they said was there's going to be little increase to traffic will be generated by the proposed operation, and no actual expansion of buildings or structures is planned. Okay, if the hours of operation are limited and the liability insurance is obtained, there is no likelihood of adverse effect on the surrounding properties. Okay, so they changed it just to give you an idea of what it looks like now. I'm sorry, this one picture I didn't have blown up. This is in reference, this is to the north of our property. The neighbors have this little building out here. When we first bought the place, there was no dumping visible at all from our, where we're standing in our yard here. A couple of years later, and this is on what they consider was zoned a residential property. This wasn't part of the permitted quarry. You can see the slate starting to be dumped over the building here. And this is what it looks like now. Just to show everybody. That's what we have to look at every day. Yeah, we can pass them around. So that gives you the idea. So the noise and the aesthetics of our property has been absolutely ruined. It's decreased our property value. We also had some safety issues. We actually had to bring about two nuisance lawsuits. The first one was because the blasting was getting worse, and we had blasts that occurred after dark at night, and they were so bad it felt like a major earthquake. I mean, people from over the line just south of our house in Pulteney, I mean, everybody was calling everybody. They were scared to death. We had no idea where this big, huge blast had come from, but it shook everybody's houses. People started having some structural damage to their houses, including ours. Our wells were contaminated. A lot of people had E. coli contamination. We had fluoride, which is salt, So it actually would eat your faucets up, it ate our outside Hardy wood stove up, which is made out of stainless steel. So you can picture, this wasn't really thin material, it was actually pretty thick, sheet material, and it ate right through it, the water. So, that's pretty scary in itself. That only occurred when the blasting started. We've had encroachment onto our property, and we had to, like I said, initiate a nuisance lawsuit just because of that, and then a lot of the neighbors also had other issues, so we did one. After that happened, we thought things would get better. We were sadly mistaken. In 2006, we had a blast that occurred that sent what they call rock, it's called fly rock, out of the quarry behind our house, and it actually landed. The hit house is across the street. That gives you any idea. It landed all up on our property in our yard. It split. I'll give you an example. It took a doorway we had in the upper part of our house. We have an older section that's 230 years old and one section that's 180 years old. It shook the two so bad that it actually splintered a door and just, twisted it that badly. I was outside at the time. I remember the situation vividly. The whole yard suddenly became full of dust. You couldn't see a thing. We had large pieces of rock land into the yard, and they were hitting, and they'd explode like shrapnel. And you can see here one piece where it landed in our driveway, another one here, and it actually blew a hole in the ground right here, right next to this building, which was like 50 feet from my house. And you can see I get very emotional over this because I've had to deal with it so many times. Okay, and then another time, the next blast we had happen, which is only ones that we've documented. This was in 2006. We had been clearing our property over in this section here, and about 3 days later, my son went out and he was taking a walk, and he came upon hundreds of pieces of rock which had landed. And the state police came out and investigated and everything. They took pictures, and you can see with using the ruler how big these chunks of rock were. And they actually landed up in my garden and out where my horses were. And it actually sheared the bark off of trees, and I have some blown up pictures so you can see that. Here's some different trees. So you can imagine what this would do. If you want to pass these around, you can see the bark. What it actually would have done if it had hit someone. Okay, and through all this, we tried contacting state and local and government officials. In regards to the blasting, we were told there's nothing they can do. MSHA, the state police, I guess, actually license them, but they don't have any control over the amount of blasting used, what's being done at all. And MSHA the only thing they can do is protect the quarry workers. The public has no protection whatsoever. Any laws regarding that. And they're not required to cover their blast sites, even if they are close to houses. So the rock has to go somewhere. And in this picture, it shows there was one big hole that was blasted. And we have state police reports and town reports. How they keep saying that they blast the rock to the north. There's only one problem. This being north, this being south, that being to the east, my property's to the west. That hole was blasted into the rock, and where was that rock going to go? Of course it was going to come my way. There's no other way it could go. It was either up or my way. It's really hard to talk to anybody, trying to get any help, because they keep pushing you from one place to the next and saying, this one doesn't regulate it, somebody else does. You call them, they say no. And the bottom line is they all bring down to the fact that they're not under Act 250, so there's no rules and regulations against any of them. Any rules they have to follow. I don't know. I think a lot of this speaks for itself. And the other thing we've had a lot of issues with is dumping. They've picked a nice place right by where I have full view of it in my backyard to dump tires. Numerous times we've had to have the town health official come out and actually talk to the quarry and have them pick the trash up. And I don't know why they keep doing it. I mean, it's a repeat thing. They know they shouldn't be doing it, and they do it again. And I'd like to see them come back under Act 250, just for the safety, benefits it might afford us, and, anything else that could help us. And I appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Thank you.